They say a lie can run halfway around the neighborhood before the truth even backs out of the driveway. But I learned that the hard way when an HOA, Karen pointed her finger at me and screamed that I'd committed a hit and run. 1 minute I was unloading groceries, minding my own business, and the next, I was surrounded by neighbors staring like I was already guilty. Sirens echoed in the distance, phones were recording, and Karen stood there shaking with rage, insisting I'd smashed her car and tried to flee. She spoke loudly, confidently, like someone who knew the power of an accusation inside an HOA-controlled community. I tried to explain that I hadn't driven anywhere all afternoon, but facts didn't matter. Karen claimed she'd seen my car speeding through the parking lot, heard the impact, and watched me panic and hide. She demanded immediate punishment, fines, and even arrest. The HOA board members, drawn by the commotion, began whispering, already treating me like a problem instead of a resident. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. In an HOA, perception often matters more than truth. Police arrived quickly. Karen switched from anger to victim mode instantly, trembling as she described the alleged crime. Her car had a fresh dent, she said, and I was the only suspect. The officers listened carefully, then turned to me. I felt my stomach drop as one of them asked if I'd been driving recently. Neighbors leaned closer, waiting for my answer like this was entertainment. I said no, calmly but firmly, even though my heart was racing. Then came the threat that made everything feel real. If Karen's story held up, I could face charges, insurance nightmares, and HOA penalties that might follow me for years. Karen smirked, convinced she'd already won. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that the truth was quietly sitting above the entrance gate, stored on a hard drive she'd forgotten existed. One officer asked a simple question that changed everything. Does this property have security cameras? The HOA president hesitated, then nodded. Karen's face stiffened, but she quickly waved it off, confident the footage would support her version. She had no idea that the cameras didn't just see cars, they recorded lies in high definition. The HOA president unlocked the security office like he was opening a vault, unaware he was about to detonate a bomb Karen herself had planted. The officers followed him inside, and after a tense pause, they allowed Karen and me to come along. The room smelled like dust and old electronics, monitors humming softly as camera feeds flickered across the screens. Karen crossed her arms, still confident, still smug, already rehearsing her victory speech in her head. The technician pulled up the footage from the entrance gate first. The timestamp showed the exact window Karen claimed the hit and run happened. Everyone leaned in. The video played. My car was there, parked perfectly still, exactly where I said it had been all afternoon. No movement, no speeding, no impact. Karen scoffed and said the incident must have happened deeper inside the complex. Her voice had a sharp edge now, like confidence cracking under pressure. So they rewound and switched cameras. Parking lot angle. Another timestamp. The footage showed Karen's car clearly, already dented when it pulled into the spot. The damage wasn't fresh. It wasn't new. It was already there before my car even entered the frame hours earlier. One officer raised an eyebrow. Karen started talking faster, claiming the camera angle was wrong, that the real damage happened later. Then the technician did something Karen hadn't anticipated. He pulled footage from a blind spot camera near the clubhouse, a camera installed after residents complained about vandalism. The video showed Karen's car reversing carelessly that morning. There was a loud crunch as she clipped a concrete barrier. She froze, stepped out, stared at the damage, then looked around. No witnesses, or so she thought. The room went silent. Karen's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The officers watched the clip twice, then turned to her. One asked, calmly but firmly, if she still wanted to maintain her statement. Karen began stammering, blaming stress, claiming confusion, insisting she must have misremembered. But the footage didn't misremember. It told the story clearly, frame by frame. Outside, neighbors were still waiting, whispering rumors about me. Inside, the narrative had completely flipped. The officers explained that filing a false police report was serious. And HOA leadership looked furious, not at me, but at Karen. Her power evaporated in seconds. The same confidence she'd weaponized against me now worked against her, making the fall even harder. As we stepped out of the office, Karen avoided everyone's eyes. The truth had surfaced, undeniable and permanent. And now it was her reputation hanging by a thread. Word spread through the neighborhood faster than Karen's original accusation ever did. By the time we stepped back into the sunlight, phones were already buzzing, whispers turning into open conversations. The same neighbors who had stared at me like I was a criminal now avoided my eyes, suddenly embarrassed by how easily they'd believed the worst. Karen lingered near the security office, shrinking into herself as HOA Board members pulled her aside for a very serious discussion. The police didn't arrest her on the spot, but they made it clear she wasn't walking away clean. Filing a false report carried consequences, and they documented everything. Karen tried one last time to salvage control, claiming she felt targeted and overwhelmed. But the officers weren't buying it. The footage spoke louder than any excuse. One officer even told her plainly that if she'd stuck to the truth, none of this would have escalated. The HOA board, however, was done with patience. Karen had built her reputation on intimidation, complaints and accusations, and now she dragged the entire community into a public mess. Fines were discussed. Sanctions were mentioned. Her role in several HOA committees was quietly revoked on the spot. Watching it happen felt surreal. For once, power didn't protect her. It exposed her. Later that evening, a few neighbors knocked on my door. Some apologized awkwardly. Others tried to joke it off, pretending they hadn't been ready to testify against me hours earlier. I accepted the apologies, but I didn't forget how quickly they'd turned. Living in an HOA teaches you a harsh lesson. People often side with authority until authority collapses. Karen didn't leave her house for days after that. When she finally did, her posture was different. No shouting, no demands, no threats about bylaws or fines. She kept her head down, avoiding cameras and conversations alike. The same surveillance system she once ignored now followed her every move. A silent reminder of her downfall. What stayed with me most wasn't the relief of being proven innocent. It was how close I'd come to losing everything because of a lie, delivered with confidence. If those cameras hadn't existed, the outcome could have been very different. Karen knew that too. That's why she'd tried so hard to control the narrative before evidence had a chance to speak. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal, but something fundamental had changed. People questioned accusations more. HOA meetings grew quieter. And Karen? She became a cautionary tale, proof that truth, when recorded, always wins eventually. In the weeks that followed, the HOA community didn't just move on, it recalibrated. What happened with Karen became a reference point in every conversation about authority, accountability, and trust. The board announced new transparency measures, including easier resident access to security footage and clearer rules about accusations. Officially, they framed it as community improvement, but everyone knew the real reason. One lie had nearly destroyed an innocent resident, and no one wanted to be next. Karen was formally fined for filing a false report and charged for wasting HOA and police resources. While the legal consequences stopped short of court, the social consequences were permanent. Her influence vanished overnight. Emails she sent to the board went unanswered for days. Complaints she filed were scrutinized instead of accepted automatically. For the first time, she was just another resident. No louder, no more powerful than anyone else. I noticed subtle changes too. Neighbors waved again. Conversations felt less tense. People asked questions instead of jumping to conclusions. A few even admitted that Karen's confidence had always intimidated them, and seeing her exposed felt strangely liberating. The cameras, once viewed as invasive, were now seen as protectors, silent witnesses that didn't take sides. One evening, I ran into Karen near the mailbox. It was awkward, quiet, nothing like our previous encounters. She didn't apologize. She didn't argue. She simply nodded and walked away. In that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about proving I was innocent. It was about stripping power from someone who used fear as a tool. The truth hadn't humiliated her. Her own actions had. Looking back, the scariest part wasn't the accusation itself. It was how easily it could have worked. If even one camera had been broken, if the footage had been deleted, or if no one bothered to check, my life could have taken a very different turn. Reputations don't need proof to be damaged, just believable stories. That's what made Karen dangerous, and that's why her exposure mattered. Now, whenever new residents move in, the story quietly circulates. Not as gossip, but as a warning. Accusations have consequences. Evidence matters. And truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone underestimates it. The HOA, Karen, who once ruled through intimidation, became the example no one wants to repeat. So if there's one lesson this neighborhood learned, it's this. Cameras don't just record movement, they record character. And eventually, they show everyone exactly who you are. Wow, can you believe what happened? If you think Karen finally got exposed, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any crazy HOA stories like this. And drop a comment below telling us what you would have done if you were in my shoes.